بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah we're going to continue with the intro to the book Manhaj Saalikeen. We finished in the last dars the main part of the intro, and now the Shaykh mentions the definition of a fard or a wajib, in fact a sunnah, a mubah, a mustahab and makrooh. And the reason the Shaykh mentions these words, even though they are generally discussed in usul books, he mentions it here to give a person an intro into the meaning of the words he's going to come across when he reads this book and other books of fiqh. So we're going to go through them quickly. So the Shaykh says the first thing is a wajib. So the wajib is that for which the committer is rewarded and the abstainer is punished. So a wajib is that action that which if a person does the action, he gets a reward. But if he leaves it off, he does not do the action. And if we can say he doesn't do it intentionally, then he will be sinful. So when they say when he does the action, it means he does the complete action. He does the complete action, meaning he has the intention of doing this action. He has the intention of doing this action. So a complete action includes the intention. It includes the intention. We make mention of the point of intention because of makrooh and other things that's going to come just now. So here wajib is where a person does an action that if he does it, he gets rewarded. But if he does not do it, then here he is sinful. And it's called wajib, and many of the fuqaha, they say wajib and fard are the same. In application, we'll find that it's actually sometimes different. Sometimes they call a fard a pillar, and then wajib is different. And in the usul books, there's actually 3 opinions on whether wajib and fard is the same or not. So basically, wajib and fard are generally the same for most part, and at times they are different. Or in certain chapters, they are used differently. Like in the chapter of wudu, they will say the fara'id of wudu, and other things are wajibat. The second thing is haram. So haram is if a person does this action, he will be sinful. If he does the action, he will be sinful. So the Shaykh says it is the opposite of wajib. If he does not do it, he will be rewarded. And if he does do it, he will be sinful. So if he does not do it, he will be rewarded. So does that mean that every time if a person is just sitting, he's looking, that means he's not doing haram, he's just looking at the sky, he's not doing a haram, does that mean he is rewarded for not doing the haram? That's actually a mas'ala in the usul books, they speak about it, and it connects to other things. But essentially the answer is no. That's why we mentioned the aspect of intention. So you have the intention not to do this haram that you basically almost have the chance to do it. So you avoid it consciously for the sake of Allah, then you are rewarded. And if you did it consciously and without being forced to do it, or those kind of reasons, then you are sinful. Then number 3, masnoon. Masnoon, that is the term, it is that for which the committer is rewarded and the abstainer is not punished. If a person does this action, he is rewarded, and if he does not do it, then he is not punished. So that is what we call sunnah. We call it sunnah, or you can call it mustahab. In the usul books, they are deemed synonyms, but actually in the fiqh books, they are different. Mustahab is one thing and sunnah is another. At times, some of the fuqaha who are very precise in which words they use, sometimes they correct other scholars when they write in a book and they say this rule is sunnah. Then the other scholar will say, no, you cannot call it sunnah. It has to be called mustahab. And they have reasons for that. We'll come across it when we mention the fiqh, inshallah. Then the 4th thing is makrooh. So makrooh is the opposite of masnoon. So it is something that if you do it, there's no sin. And if you do not do it, you get reward. Again, if you do not do it intentionally, you get the reward. And if you do it, then there's no sin. The last thing is mubah. It is that for which committing or abstaining from it are equal. So mubah is an action that to do it, there's no reward. Not to do it, there's no sin. There's no sin. So that is called mubah. So those are generally the main 5 terms used for a rule in fiqh. There are others the Shaykh has left out because we're mentioning it in summary, and the place for these masail are the books of usul, not the books of fiqh. So another thing that we'll mention here, because it comes a lot in fiqh, that the Shaykh is not mentioned, and that is khilaf al-awla. Khilaf al-awla is a category between mubah and makrooh. So if you were to put it into 5 and you were to say wajib, then mustahab, then in the middle is mubah, underneath it is makrooh, and the last one is haram. The last one is haram. Then in between makrooh and mubah, you have khilaf al-awla. Khilaf al-awla means something that is better not to do. So based on that definition, it's exactly the same as makrooh. But actually, there's slight differences. So an action that is makrooh, the fuqaha say it is mustahab to continuously not do the action. It is mustahab to continuously not do the action. And also, an action that is sunnah muakkada, to leave it off, to not do it, is makrooh. But an action that is not sunnah muakkada, then to leave it off will be khilaf al-awla. So to leave off the sunan, that's in the madhab 10 sunan before the salawat and after the salawat in a day. That is sunan, those sunan of salah, they are emphasized. They are rawatib, they are muakkada. And witr as well. It is emphasized. So to leave those off will be makrooh. But to leave off a sunnah that is not emphasized, let's say 4 rak'at before asr, then that won't be makrooh. In fact, that's not even that stressed. But to an action, a sunnah that is quite stressed, but not to the extent of a muakkada, then to leave that off will be khilaf al-awla. Khilaf al-awla. And lastly, the fuqaha say the difference between the two is the dalil. There's a prohibition that comes in the hadith that is a direct, clear prohibition, not as strong as haram, and we say it's makrooh. And if there's an indirect prohibition, examples will come when we go through fiqh, but an indirect prohibition, we'll call it khilaf al-awla. Thereafter, the Shaykh says, it is obligatory on the one who is responsible for his own actions to have knowledge from fiqh and that which is required from him concerning the acts of worship, dealings and transactions. So the Shaykh is saying that seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim. On every Muslim, seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim. So what is that amount of seeking knowledge that is obligatory? The fuqaha say every action that a person has to fulfill themselves that are obligatory in their religion, those things they have to learn how to do it. So it's obligatory on a person to learn tawheed, and to learn how to perform salah, and to learn how to give zakah. And then if he's going for hajj, he has to learn hajj. Or if he has enough wealth to give zakah, he has to learn zakah. If he wants to trade, he needs to learn, in general, the fiqh of trading. That's why Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, for the marketplace where they used to exchange currency, where they exchange gold and silver in his time, he said, I want to actually prevent these people who engage in money exchanging, those who do not know the fiqh of exchanging money. I would actually want to prevent them from entering the marketplace. So therefore it's obligatory on a person to learn the fiqh of the action he's going to engage into, especially if that action is obligatory. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or not that's why, but a benefit, the virtue of it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fid din." Whoever Allah Azza wa Jal wills good for, He gives him fiqh of deen. He gives him an understanding of deen. And fiqh actually means the deeper understanding of things, the deeper understanding of masail. So not just merely memorizing masail or knowing simple masail, that's not knowing fiqh. But to just know it a bit deeper, to grasp things in a deeper manner, to know fiqh in a deeper manner. Some of the fuqaha explain levels of fiqh and levels of knowing fiqh, but we'll mention it on another time inshallah. The Shaykh begins the fiqh section now, but he begins it with aqeedah. He begins it with aqeedah. And this method is not strange to the fuqaha. Many of the fuqaha actually begin their fiqh books with aqeedah. Many of the fuqaha begin their fiqh books with aqeedah. Amongst them from the Hanbali fuqaha is Ibn Abi Musa in his book Al-Irshad. He begins with aqeedah and he explains what he mentioned on aqeedah, and then he begins the fiqh. So the Shaykh does the same. But before we go into the explanation, which we're going to read the aqeedah section, here and there I'll add something, and then when we go to the fiqh, then we will start explaining everything thoroughly. The fiqh books, generally, they are explained in one of four manners. You find four types of explanation of fiqh books. Number one, where a scholar will take a fiqh book and then he will explain each word of the fiqh book. So he will explain the meaning of the word and the usage of the word, etc. So he will go word by word and explain the book. The second manner that fuqaha generally use is you mention the mas'ala and the dalil. You mention the mas'ala and the dalil. The third method the fuqaha mention is they mention fiqh, they mention the mas'ala, and then they mention the difference of opinion in the mas'ala. Either difference of opinion in one madhab or amongst more than one madhab. So maybe two or three, and sometimes even all four madhahib. And some of the books even have more difference of opinions from the Sahaba and Tabi'een and others. And the fourth manner of fiqh books you have is a fiqh book that has the mas'ala, and then the explainer, the person explaining the book, will mention more masail. So he will connect the main mas'ala to other masail. He will connect the words to other masail that could connect to the main mas'ala. And this is, some of the fuqaha call this one of the deepest, most intricate manners of fiqh, because it actually is fiqh. You actually need to have deep fiqh to grasp masail and to connect masail, and to know that from this word we can pull out 3 or 4 masail, and from this word 3 or 4 things are excluded and 3 or 4 things are included. So that is one of the deepest ways of fiqh, of explaining a fiqh book. And for us, which manner are we going to do in our book? We said the first manner that fuqaha use is to explain the words, because we said in the previous dars, that fiqh books many times are written in a manner that's actually very difficult to understand. But the Shaykh has written it very simply. So we don't need to spend time explaining the words of the text. Then number 2, the Shaykh has mentioned the dalil. So the dalil is already covered. The evidence is covered. So he covered the dalil for most things. Those things where there's no dalil, we'll mention it inshallah. Then number 3, the khilaf, the difference of opinion. For us, we are going to teach this book mostly on what the Shaykh mentioned. Here and there I'll mention a difference of opinion where the Shaykh opposes the mashhur from the madhab. So at most when we mention a difference of opinion, it will be in the madhab, number 1. Number 2, either it will just be an indication to the different opinion, to the other opinion, and sometimes I will explain it a bit more, but not more than that. And so therefore 3 things already covered. The fourth manner of doing fiqh is to mention masail, to mention more masail connected to the main mas'ala. And that's the method we will follow. That's the method we will follow with our explanation. So we'll mention a few masail, not too much, because the objective of this book, as the Shaykh said, is it's a summary. It's a summary. So therefore, one of the methods a person could apply to not get a benefit of the book is that if the person then goes ahead and explains the book in a manner that the author did not intend it for. And he intended this book, rahmatullahi alayhi, Shaykh Sa'di, for beginners. He intended it for beginners, and he intended it for those who are covered, who have already gone through fiqh, to be able to go through it quickly. So most of the time, you then should explain a book in the method that the author intended. Sometimes, yes, fuqaha intentionally have a different objective. So they might take a small text and explain it in a lengthy manner. But that has its own explanation connected to it. So we'll start with the aqeedah in the next lesson. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us that which benefits us and benefit us with that which He teaches us. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.